Welcome, Buju, Watwanumaradon, to Kingston, Katarokwi, Katarokwi, Katarokwi. Kingston remains on the ancestral homelands of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Tourism Kingston acknowledges the everlasting presence of these nations and other First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who share this landscape today. We are grateful to reside in and remain visitors to this territory while acknowledging our responsibility to honor the land, water, and skies with gentle respect and purifying preservation. The history of Katarokwi and/or Kingston. Indigenous communities forever utilized the local landscape as that undefined by the national, provincial, or regional boundary lines as they exist today. Various nations walked this land, camped adjacent to the many creeks, hunted in the regional hardwood forests, and fished along the shorelines. Of the known nations to have repeatedly visited the area for millennia, the elders tell us that the ancestors of the modern Huron-Wendat Nation at present-day Wendake, Quebec, the Anishinaabe nations Algonquin and Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy nations, the Mohawk, Oneida, and Cayuga, all laid claim to Katarokwi for many centuries. Written text and maps of only the last 500 years, combined with more recent archaeological interpretations, suggest that prior to European contact, this region was a hunting and fishing locale, bounced between 3 to 5 different culturally distinct Indigenous nations who all shared a similar language root, identified by the French as the Iroquois language. Further literary interpretations also suggest that the Anishinaabe language, often called Algonquin in historical literature, was spoken locally by Indigenous hunters and fishers who walked the region and were amongst the first to establish relations with the French who later built Fort Frontenac. Indigenous oral histories identify that for centuries, the Wendat, or keepers of the land, who were called the Huron by early French explorers, shared the full expanse of the St. Lawrence River and both northern and southern Lake Ontario shorelines with their neighbors from the north, the Anishinaabe, or original peoples, as well as their neighbors to the south, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, also called the Iroquois by early French explorers. What is agreed upon is that the ebb and flow of First Nations occupations across the region have always been hallmarked by the region being bountiful in hunting, fishing, and natural vegetation resources, but also because of its strategic location for monitoring the movement of their neighbors. With its location at the confluence of 3 major waterways, the Katarokwi or Rideau River, the St. Lawrence River, and Lake Ontario marking the region ecologically, Katarokwi was the perfect stopover en route for regional Haudenosaunee village sites near what is now Gananoque, Napanee, and the Bay of Quinte, as well as the waterways that led north into the lands of the Anishinaabe. Crossing into other Indigenous nations' territories was respected by the same rules that continue today at border crossings. There was a request to enter, identifying the purpose of entering, and the length of intention for the visit. Respectful relationships recognizing the safety of borders in peacetime and to end wars were often bonded through the creation of wampum belts. Made from quahog, a round clamshell, the process of making wampum beads is an arduous one, with a series of creating cubes out of flakes from the shell, drilling holes through the center of the cubes, then shaping and smoothing them into beads to be strung on lengths of thread. The color of the shell plays a significant role in revealing the information of the wampum. For white, wampum signifies peace, while purple relates messages of more serious or political matters. For the Haudenosaunee, wampum held a sacred use. Bound on strings, wampum beads were used to create intricate patterns on belts, and these belts are used as a guide to narrate Haudenosaunee history, traditions, and laws. Wampum served as a person's credentials, or a certificate of authority, and are often used for official purposes and religious ceremonies, including to commit to peace. A most relevant wampum, especially to the shoreline region between the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee, is the dish with 1 spoon covenant wampum belt, a wampum covenant still adhered to today. The significance of the dish with 1 spoon covenant wampum belt as understood by Elder Kiriga Magizi Doug Williams, a former chief of Curve Lake First Nation, and shared with me through Knowledge Keeper Ann Taylor, is explained as this. Quote, Doug's understanding of the dish with one spoon is that it is an agreement to share Anishinaabe-Mississauga hunting territory with our brothers the Haudenosaunee at certain times. The Haudenosaunee are welcome to hunt within our territory during the times when our nations meet to renew and feed our friendship. This is when hunting is allowed. During other periods, permission would need to be requested and decisions would then be honored and respected. It is our understanding that this treaty between our nations is something that must be fed and revisited on a regular basis." Unquote. Wampum treaties such as this were common for centuries between and within nations to regulate the health and safety of the land, water, and skies, all the resources that humans need to survive. For without us, all that gives us sustenance would thrive. Without all that surrounds us for sustenance, we would see the end of our existence.